Mark Walsh here. So this is a video on leadership in times of crisis and particularly in difficult or stressful environments. So I've been teaching leadership and stress management resilience for the last nearly 15 years. Previous to that, I worked in the non-profit sector, particularly in areas of conflict, places that were often quite troublesome, quite stressful. So I've worked in Afghanistan, the Middle East, East Africa, West Africa, the slums of Brazil. So during this corona crisis at the moment, a lot of what I'm seeing is pretty familiar to me. Having worked with soldiers, emergency service personnel, journalists in difficult situations, non-profit sector, a lot of the patterns I'm seeing in leadership right now are pretty common. For me, this is kind of like an average day in some ways, and I think it'd be nice to share that. So I just did a small training for a management consultancy. So this is for you guys, but also for the wider public. Okay, so the first pattern I think to be aware of is just what fight-flight does to people's brains, people's interactions, people's leadership. When people are in this physiological fight-flight response, which is cross-cultural, different variations a little bit, but basically it's the same thing. You've heard of fight-flight, fight-flight, freeze. And this means that people will respond differently. So what kind of differences should we expect? Well, the main one is people getting less smart, less kind, and less creative. In a business environment, for example, all of these things matter. So people might not be having their best ideas. They might not be able to be adaptable. They might get much more conservative, retreat to sort of old strategies, or they might just not be to do anything, that kind of freeze response. We may also see a kind of contraction of their circle of concern. So people may get a bit more selfish. You will also see people, the other side though, reaching out in the shared threat. So, leaders have done this for years politically. They've said, you should be afraid of the Jews, the Russians, or whoever to be afraid. And that can actually bond groups together. Now we have a shared perceived threat. The key thing is it's perceived. For us to experience stress, it doesn't even have to be a real threat, though, in this case, it very likely is. And when there's a perceived threat, people often bond together. So this is also an opportunity for bonding, but also the side of our people becoming more selfish, looking after myself and my family, taking all the toilet roll, the example of this is the kind of thing that happens. Okay, so what should leaders be aware of? Well, first one is if you can be calmer than other people, this is extremely useful for those people and is a high status position. The guy eating the sandwich when everyone else is freaking out. If you can show concern and compassion, that goes a long way. Hopefully that's authentic. I was in a meeting recently. I just started the meeting by saying, hey, I hope everyone's okay, your family's okay. Acknowledging emotions of fear. Often those are denied, particularly in more sort of macho types. They can be denied or projected, their children or whatever. Acknowledging anxiety that's there, but also physiologically regulating your state. So you might want to look at some of my videos on centering, for example, where I show some state regulation techniques. Those can be super helpful for leaders. So you can stay that little bit calmer than everyone else. They will trust you then. That's what people are looking for, is like, who's calmer? Who's the top monkey here, the calmest one? So we're influencing and leading through state. You're either making people you're working with more stressed by being anxious, or less stressed by being less anxious than them. This is common sense, emotional intelligence, key skill at a time like this. People are less logical, less rational. You can't just give people the data. They need to have some sense of emotional leadership, trust, warmth. Two sides to that. We've got warmth, compassion, trust, acknowledging fear, seeing the difficulty we're all in. And then the other side is clarity, confidence, some sense of like, okay, this person can lead us in this time. Yin and yang, different people want more of one or the other. Often when people are scared, they want more clear leadership. Now this is cultural, difference between say Russia and Holland, quite big, but people generally want more clear, more directive style of leadership. So you imagine you're in a house fire and someone says, I'm going to coach you out of this situation. Where do you think the door might be? Not so useful, as opposed to there's the exit, let's go. Yeah, so that style of leadership may change. Though acknowledge, different kinds of people. People fall back to what they've done most. So relational people get more relational, macho people get more macho. People use the coping mechanisms they know already more. Be aware that people may be doing displacement activity to cope. So that might be just doing anything they can. And sometimes as a leader, keeping people busy is the best thing you can do, actually. It gives them a sense of like, okay, we're empowered, we're doing something, even if it's not that useful. So there can be one to watch out for. Yeah, I think they're some of the main ones. So regulating your own state, realizing that you're leading with the emotions, with the body, not just with what you say, being aware that people may be contracted, maybe in this fight-flight response, maybe more conservative in some of their views they're taking, may not want to see new things, maybe look much more short-term than normal. That's another one as well. So bringing the bigger picture again. Okay, so my name is Mark Walsh. I hope these have been useful. A few management and leadership considerations in this time of crisis and stress.